What's up, college football fans and Mean Green fans? Sonoy Valencia here once again with the Mean Green Show. Today, joined once again with Ryan Davenport. We're going to recap this North Texas victory over Louisiana Tech. But before we get into all that, guys, you already know the drill. If you're a fan of college football or G5 football, consider hitting that like and subscribe button because that's truly all that we talk about. Ryan, thanks for jumping on. It's our Sunday ritual.
Yep.
And just right into it. Starting off with the offense, what are your thoughts on this game?
We're glad we got a win. Thought they came out firing on all cylinders. Thought they had a good run pass balance. Really enjoyed watching Rodgers operate back there. Thought he was a calming presence. Felt really good about the offensive side of the ball this week. Obviously, not the same defensive we've been seeing, but putting him at the helm and letting him operate and letting him take charge seemed to work well for us. So I was proud of that.
Staying on the Rodgers topic for a second, so he goes about 59%, 313 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Really, the last game that a North Texas QB had of that, I would say, caliber game was when Osinani played at Western Kentucky back in October, and it was a over 400-yard game. I think 3 touchdowns, which, that was an anomaly. But it's been a while since we've seen that kind of game from Rodgers. And we talked about this pre-tape about his presence and what it brings, and you mentioned how he looked calm. When was the last time, if you can remember, that you felt calm about North Texas QB play that you can remember?
I mean, Mason Fine comes to mind. I mean, just a guy who seemed to, when I was talking about him being calm, I meant a calming presence in the huddle, like a guy who's sitting there with his teammates saying, "Hey guys, I got this. I got y'all. I'm gonna take care of business." I mean, the shoulder he laid into the defensive end on that play, just that stuff, just that gets you going. If you're playing offense for that guy, that's a guy you want to play with. So I love that part of it. I thought he had a good grasp of the offense, and I think they were doing a nice job of balancing between the pass and the run, and they made big plays too. I thought it was well rounded. So
I feel like a lot of plays that Rodgers was making out there, whether it be with his arm or his legs, I feel like we have seen that done to the North Texas defense in recent years. And it was just kind of a nice feeling
to be on the other side
exactly,
of that, right?
because that's damning and frustrating for the Louisiana Tech defense and fans watching him scamper, for a first down with his legs.
There's nothing worse than having a quarterback who's mobile, who you can have great defense, you can be in the right spot, and then contain breaks down in the line of scrimmage, and he gets out and gets the first down. It's demoralizing, and no interception. So that's a positive trait. We gotta protect the football, and if we're gonna have a chance, we've got to be holding on to the football, creating long, sustained drives, and trying to outscore people. So,
yes, and kind of taking a look in the running back room, Iowa Day, monster day, 148 yards, 7.8 per carry, 2 touchdowns, just really just turned on the Jets, many times, and with Ikaika Ragsdale being out, what looks like, I think, for the season, and I know they're still working Oscar back in slowly. Right. But it seems like Io for now has really solidified himself as the feature back in this offense, and the spread and shred, it might really work to his skill set, being the speed guy that he is.
Well, the coaches saw something on film that they liked, or something in the booth that they liked. They had open runs on the outside, and I think the secondary's playing off, and they were able to hook the edge and get him to the outside. I mean, there were several runs that it was almost like nobody was there for 10 yards down the field, and then they're coming up to make tackles. So I think they did a good job of exploiting it, getting the ball in his hands, and that opened up the passing game. So
to me, and what's your take on this too? It really seemed like we saw kind of what the Morse era should look like, and as it pertains to wide receivers specifically as well. You see Roderick Burns having double-digit 11 catches, and Macklin showing off the ability to just, at any second, bust out.
Play. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably in a similar sphere as Smoke Harris. I wouldn't say as good as Smoke Harris, though. Louisiana Tech's, big time receiver, but he has that, the big home run threat at any time. And then obviously Trey Cleveland kind of coming into his own, but it just seemed that, the Leach's offense, air raid, it just seemed, I don't know, I don't know if it's just over emotional overreaction, but it just seemed like the receivers were in sync. Maybe, I don't know if that's to, the number one guys playing the entire game. What do you credit that to? But what are your thoughts on the receiving core and just, what you saw against Louisiana Tech as it pertains to them?
Well, I think it's getting into a game that we are competitive with, right? And that's what felt like we were digging out of a hole with FIU. FIU, I feel like we played relatively competitive. We just couldn't get it done. But Louisiana Tech's in a similar vein. We should be competitive with those teams. I thought we were going to give away the game at the end, and that was probably the most frustrating thing. But it reminds me of the Mike Leach, Texas Tech teams of the, from back in the day, and even some of the Washington State of, we're gonna score. We're not as concerned about defense, and we're gonna score. And if we can get that dialed in and score a lot, we'll be okay. Hopefully, we can improve on defense. But it was exciting. I'll tell you that much. And so, from that perspective, I think that was a win.
Yeah. Let me ask you this before we talk about the defense, and you being a former defensive player.
Yeah.
But the product that Morris brings to North Texas, his offense is going to. I think Rogers is a solidified QB1. This is not that's not the argument I'm making here. However, I do think with another quarterback, whether it be Stone, maybe even Jace, that this offense is just tooled to score points.
Right.
And with Rogers in there, we're good chance you're going to be scoring more than you would without him in there. So anyway,
Sure.
In today's world, today's football, obviously you want to win, but it's an appealing. And when Morris got hired, he said, we're going to play a brand of football that's fun to watch, and this, that, and the other. And although you don't want to have to pull a 40 burger every time to beat Louisiana Tech, it is, again, fun to watch. I mean, that's a high scoring game, watching a good quarterback play. But do you think there's, as for North Texas, regardless of how the era goes, wins and losses, that we are in for a lot of, shootouts or high scoring affairs from a North Texas standpoint? And do you think that's good for this fan base?
I do. I mean, I think that we're in store for a lot of high scoring games. I think that is what we're going to see. If Leach tells us anything, that's what it'll be. Do I think it's good for the North Texas brand? I do. I mean, I'm a defensive guy, so obviously when I see bad defense, it bothers me. When I see bad fundamentals or bad special teams, it bothers me. But that being said, they're investing heavy in the offense, and people want to buy tickets to see people score points. So from a excitement, buzz, highlight reel type of scenario, then yeah, I think it's good for the North Texas Mean Green.
Switching over to the defensive side of the ball, and 40 at the end of the day, Louisiana Tech still scored 37 points against this defense with the quarterback from North Texas and Rogers not throwing any interceptions. So there's not a lot of, this one was picked at the 20, whatever. It was just straight up 37 points, and a lot of it late in the game. What are your thoughts on the defense? Good or bad?
Well, I'm gonna kind of give you a good, bad, good scenario here. So the first point I'll make is I saw them shift down into a 4 defensive lineman front. And I think that was, I'll give credit to the coaching staff saying, hey, we've got to do something different. I don't know if they saw something for this week, or if they're saying, hey, we just haven't performed. We're going to bring some people down on the line. Now, some of the guys they had on the line kind of didn't look to me like they'd been playing on the line a lot. So that was, maybe we need to find the right tools for that. But that being said, defense was improved, and the statistics show that. So I appreciate them not, sticking to their guns so much that, we lose games because we're just so in love with the 3-3-5. So that's the first thing. The second thing I'll say, which is my negative, is, and we talked about this pre-show here, when we're up and La Tech is driving at the end of the game, and they line up in a trips formation to the right, three receivers, and they run a little bubble screen and a little wide receiver quick screen, and the safety covering the middle receiver is 12 yards off the ball, and they get 5-6 yards on that play, and they immediately next play come back to it, and we're lined up 12 yards off the ball again, and Smoke Harris is in the middle, and they throw that same thing, and he beats one tackle and scores. That to me is frustrating because, one, we're not adjusting, we're not learning from the play that was just run. We know that that's their best receiver, and we're not sort of identifying that he's a big play threat there. And we're lining up. I feel like we were beat by alignment before the snap even happened. We're 12 yards off the ball. We're going to have a hard tackle in space, and their wide receivers were blocking very well downfield. So they seal our linebacker. The corner gets blocked, and we're one-on-one in open space, 12 yards off the ball. That's a tough spot to be in as a player. So that's something I'd like to see them improve on, is go to the tape and say, how do we fix this problem? Because we're going to see a lot more of this with as good or better receivers. And that was poor tackling again. That was another thing. I think there was 5 missed tackles on that play when I watched it again. So, those are the things that we've got to clean up. Those are the fundamental things. But overall, I think it was a much improved performance. I think that the coaching staff realized that they needed to make some adjustments. They did. So from that perspective, we still have work to do, but we are making improvements. So I got to appreciate that.
Yeah, it was really good to see Mason Richards get his first, I think it was his first sack of the season. And then, Logan Wilson leading the defense in tackles. Ethan Waslowski, the redshirt freshman, still in there, still making plays. Big time player this year, and, a lot of eligibility left. And another guy who, if push came to shove, I may say this guy is the best player on defense in Rod Brown. Not a big stat guy in the 3-3 formation, but as far as NIL goes, that's the kind of guy you got to NIL for a team like North Texas. He hasn't, he's not a transfer in. This he can leave at any time. So hopefully he sticks around for many years to come, because he's an issue for offenses. And but yeah, to kind of echo a little bit off of what you're saying, it's I feel like it's way more palatable being that North Texas got the victory. Had we lost that, I feel like we're, a little more knives.
It had been frustrating.
Knives.
I mean, I was frustrated in game when they scored that touchdown. I was really frustrated. That was, remind me, was that after the onside kick? That was or that before? I can't remember. But either way, giving up the onside kick's another one that that's one of those that I'm like, okay, we need some special teams work. We need some defensive fundamental work. I'm not, part of me feels like we spent a lot of time on the offense in the off season, and in camp, we spent a lot of time on the offense, probably because coach is an offensive guy. And I get that, but some of these coordinators we need to, pick it up a little bit there and get some fundamental work done, and maybe a little more time spent on that.
Lastly, one thing before we get out of here. So North Texas coming off a victory, which is nice. You just kind of look at the landscape of the conference. We don't know the health on Frank Harris. Maybe, UTSA may not be the UTSA we're accustomed to. We definitely wouldn't be without him. UAB takes a pretty big loss to Lafayette. Are you feeling any better about, as far as where we may fall in conference, and just really looking at the Navy game, one ahead Abilene Christian. How do you feel about that Navy game? And then do you feel like they're in a place to where they can prep for Navy? Because they have a bye week and then ACU. So do you feel like they're at a place where they can kind of overlook ACU, or is that, getting too comfortable because you don't want to lose to an FCS school at home? Anyway, if you can kind of take it from there.
If I'm them, I'm focused on Abilene Christian. I'm not worried about Navy. Navy's going to be a tough team to play no matter who you are. They show up. They're going to be disciplined. They're going to run the ball. We haven't stopped the run from anybody yet. So, I think with Navy, it's a little bit like this week. You got to outscore them. You got to get a stop here or there, and you got to outscore them. And you have an opportunity to do that with Navy because they're going to, you athletically, you're going to match up pretty well, but they're going to hold the ball. They're going to run the ball. You know what you're going to get. It's hard to prep for those games. I played for a school like that. I've played against schools like that. It's hard to deal with. And so I wouldn't focus too much on 1 week trying to say, okay, how are we going to beat Navy? I would say, let's beat ACU. Then let's prep for Navy. Let's go there and try to get a win, try to put up big numbers. And then let's focus on conference play. As far as where do we land in conference, I don't really want to change my thoughts based on 1 week because they didn't show me, they started out hot against La Tech, and if they'd kept the gas on and kind of blown them out, I might feel a little different. But they almost gave that game away, and they were up the whole game. I mean, La Tech didn't get tied and didn't break the, stop losing that game until the last 2-3 minutes of the game. So they kind of let them in, and that's what I think is the concerning part. So I would just focus on one game at a time right now.
All right, Ryan. Well, as always, go Mean Green, and thank you for hopping on.
Go Mean Green. Thanks.